All right, we are live. Hey, welcome to the Power Knot. My name is Juan Boyce, and let me tell you who I am. My name is Juan Boyce, and I am the um, host of the Power Knot. I have been programming computers since I was a kid. So by 11, I was writing code, building little pieces of software. And now I am transitioning into leadership. And leadership, just like tying a bow tie and writing code, it's something you can learn. So it just requires structure, practice, you know, just like building a perfect bow tie. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Today's guest is David Weiss, lead software engineer by day, coach and creator by night. He is the voice behind Besides Code, a weekly newsletter that helps engineers grow not just as coders, but as people. And he lives by that mission, whether he's mentoring teammates, writing about leadership, or jumping on a live stream with no script and no safety net. So David is someone who understands that the job is never just the job. There's always work beneath the surface. The way we communicate, the way we reflect, the way we show up for others. So today we're talking about the work beyond the work. So let's tie one on. And let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. I want to remind you this is a live stream. I can see your comments. So just put them down in the comments or any questions you have for us, and we will answer to them as we get to them if time allows. So, David, thank you for showing up here. I greatly appreciate you for being here, and I'm so excited to talk to you. But before we do that, let's see the tie.
All right. So I got a nice kind of navy blue tie here with some pink polka dots. I have never tied a bow tie in my life before, so I'm ready to learn.
All right, that's great. And any particular story about the tie at all?
Not really. Yeah, just kind of. It's my first bow tie that I've ever owned, so I wanted to get one for this podcast, and now I'll have one if I ever need to use one in the future. So I'm excited about that.
Any particular reason that particular style called out to you, or was it just the only one they had?
I blue is my favorite color, and big fan of navy blue, and you can't go wrong with the pink polka dots either. So
Yes, pink's a good color.
it is, yeah.
Yes. Very fortuitous for today. Today's tie is pink, match my shirt. This is actually this isn't the first tie I've gotten. This is probably about the third or the fifth one, but I definitely picked this up at um, a department store somewhere, and it actually matches a pair of socks that I have. Not the socks I'm wearing today,
Nice.
but I'm super excited about that. So let's go ahead and get started. So tell me, you started teaching yourself to code back in 2007. What pulled you in, and what kept you going?
Yeah. So really, I'm largely self-taught when it comes to software engineering, and around 2007 is when I picked up a couple books on HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and started learning how to code just by reading through those books, and writing some code and getting some things to show up in my web browser. And shortly after that, fast forward a couple months, and I really decided, hey, this might be something that I can turn into a career. I'm really excited about it, and I ended up enrolling in a web design and development certificate program online. This was kind of way before boot camps even existed. And shout out to Sessions College for Professional Design. That is what the college that I enrolled in, and it was a certificate program. It was kind of go at your own pace, and there were various courses in web design and development. So I really got kind of that crash course in color theory, typography, and I took a PHP course because that was kind of big back then, and that's kind of a little bit about how I got started. And, I think my, fast forward maybe even, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so, towards the end of 2007 is when I landed my first job as a web developer. The title was actually web application developer. And I was really doing full stack before the term full stack was coined. So I was doing working with Microsoft SQL Server and writing SQL queries and building out database tables, and then also using excuse me, Microsoft.net to kind of power the front end. So yeah, and then quickly really discovered that the front end is where I love to work the most. And, I've always been creative, always been interested in design. I've taken some drawing classes here and there in high school. And just really felt up that kind of gravitational pull towards the front end and being able to write code and actually see it come alive in a browser. That has always excited me and made me interested in code, and I've been working on the front end really ever since.
Okay, that's awesome. May I ask what you were doing before 2007, before you started code, and like what made you want to, I don't know, mess with HTML in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some people watching might know this, and I posted a little bit about it on LinkedIn. But I was actually a Spanish teacher for a number of years before I got into tech. I have a bachelor's degree in Spanish and a master's degree in Hispanic literature, and I, was fortunate to have taught both college and high school students. I mean, thinking back on it now, I really did enjoy the teaching aspect of it, actually, sharing my enthusiasm for the Spanish language, helping students learn all of that stuff. I really enjoyed. What I didn't enjoy so much was a lot of the behind the scenes work, having to deal with administrators, having to deal with parents. When you're a teacher, especially in America, you can't just do your job. There's a lot of other things that you have to make sure that you're checking off the boxes for, and especially if you teach in a like an affluent community or a community where education is very important and there's a lot of pressure on students. You're going to hear from parents and you're going to hear from administrators if if you give somebody a B on an assignment or something. So I was getting some of that pushback, which made the job a little bit, a little bit harder than it should have been. So yeah, I eventually made the decision to switch careers and get into tech. And, I've been in tech for nearly 20 years now. We're 18 or so years. And I have no plans to leave anytime soon. So.
Yeah, well, teaching, that's great. We need teachers, and I imagine there's a lot of transferable skills between, tech, teaching, coaching, all that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, for a while, as I was more of an individual contributor in my tech jobs, right, I didn't always make the connection between teaching and that previous career I had. But the past few years, as I've gotten more involved with engineering leadership, as I've served in roles such as being a tech lead and being an engineering manager, I've really started to connect the dots and realize just how much I learned about leadership as a teacher in my previous career, and really even today how I view teachers as leaders, in the classroom and beyond. And so I've drawn a lot of parallels between those my previous career and my current career. And yeah, I think I think that also plays into a lot about my emphasis on the human side of software engineering, right? I think to be an effective teacher, it is about forming those relationships. It is about getting to know your students, not only inside but outside of the classroom, knowing what sports they play, what hobbies they're interested in, and what their background and their family background is, and things like that. Doing those things can help you be more of an effective teacher because you're able to connect and bond with those students. So the same is true for leadership in software engineering and working on product development teams as well, right? You know, the best managers I've had, the best leaders I've worked with have always been able to not just focus on, you know, the task at hand or the next deliverable, but there's also some care and some concern and some interest in your life outside of work and what you're doing from 5 to 9 as opposed to 9 to 5.
Right, right. Yeah, so you describe your mission as helping engineers grow as humans too. So it sounds like a lot of that came from your teaching career, yeah?
It came from teaching, and to be honest, I think it also came from just my upbringing and previous life experiences. You know, my mother is an immigrant in the United States. She's a citizen now, but she came to this country from Central America. You know, when she was about 16, 18 years old. And so, you know, that's kind of the tie and the connection I have with Spanish. I, you know, was interested in the Spanish language early on, speaking a little bit with her and with my family. So, you know, I think from a very early age, I've always realized that, you know, there's a lot more to this world than just the state I live in and just the country I live in. And, you know, fast forward to my years in college, my undergrad years, as a Spanish major, I went to study abroad in Spain, close to Madrid. And so that was honestly one of the best times of my life, you know, being able to travel not only throughout Spain, the country, but also visit other countries in Europe, such as Belgium and England. It just really showed me that this world is much bigger than kind of the bubbles that we live in on a daily basis, right? And it just gave me a greater appreciation for different cultures, different languages, different walks of life. And you know, I think over the years that has continued to thrive in my career and show up in different ways in my career. And now it just you know, as an engineering leader, as a solopreneur, you know, and from 5 to 9, right? Like that human aspect is everything, really. It's a big part of a lot of my day job activities, and then my my solopreneur activities as well.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's go ahead and get started with the tie. So let's go ahead and drape it over our
All right.
shoulders. And the first step, we start off pretty easy here. So with my dominant hand is my right one. And so on the left side, I have a relatively short piece, and then I'll take the longer end. And I hope I'm not going too far.
Okay, so
I'll do.
start over again.
I'll it's not perfectly level, so the longer end is on my left side, then the shorter end is on my right side. But when I cross over, it puts the short end on my left side. Then I'll just pull this long end underneath, and then throw it over my shoulder, get it out of the way.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the short end over.
Well, hold on, I'll do it one more time. Let's see. It's you know how it is when you're a teacher. You know, you understand things, but you don't think about them. So let's see. The longer end here is in my left hand. I'm crossing it over, and so this longer end is actually going over the shorter end. And then I'm taking that long end and I'm tucking it underneath, and then I'm throwing it under the shoulder. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's that should, and then that'll be the what we'll do for now.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it should just stay. Yeah. There you go. Perfect. So tell me, what's something small that a great leader does that most people don't notice?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. I would say, you know, I alluded to this a minute ago, but you know, thinking about what the person does beyond just their day job, right? When you get in, you lock into your day job and you're there for your 9 to 5 or whatever hours you work. You're so focused on what's the next task I have to work on? When is it due? What's the next meeting I have to go to? And when you just think about that, it can be pretty stressful and create kind of that. It can start to escalate and create a very toxic work environment, right? So the best leaders and managers that I know that I've worked with in the past, and the leader that I try and be, is someone who attempts to talk about what that person is doing and interested in outside of work, right? So it can be as simple as, asking someone how their morning is going, asking them how their PTO went, if they took a couple days off. If I've had previous conversations with them about their family, maybe asking about their kids or their spouse, or even something that they're interested in outside of work. It could be a hobby they have. It could be a side project they're working on. Taking just a couple minutes to talk about those things makes such a huge impact on that relationship. And it really shows your direct report or your colleague or your coworker that you care about them as a human, not just an employee in the company, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've heard of that as I don't know, marbles in the jar, where I don't know if you've heard of this, but the idea is that trust is built a little bit at a time, like putting a single marble in a jar at a time, and the single marble might be something as simple as, remembering something about them and whatnot. And then when you have a bunch of marbles in the jar, that's someone that you really, really trust. And the idea is it's not something that you can build up all at once.
Yes,
Something you build up over time.
exactly.
You know?
Yep, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Okay. So you've shared some deeply honest thoughts about self-doubt and comparison. What helps you get through those moments without shutting down?
Yeah, I love this question because it's something that fortunately or unfortunately, I think about this a lot, and I know other people do as well. So I'm happy to, to give tips and advice when it comes to this. I think one thing for me that helps is certainly remembering that we all start at zero. Whether it's another person on LinkedIn that might have 100,000 followers, or whether it's a celebrity or an athlete on Instagram that has, millions of followers. I mean, everybody really does start at zero. And, we all grow at different rates. Our journeys are all different. So somebody going from 0 to 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, it's going to look different for me as it does for that person. It's not just about time you spend on a platform or how many posts you write. There's just a lot of different factors, and the truth is that we all grow and learn at different speeds and different rates, right? So when I feel like when I start to compare myself to somebody else who might have more subscribers on their newsletter than me, or more LinkedIn followers, or more likes on their post, I try and take a step back and just remember, hey, I'm seeing the end result. I'm seeing the finished product. This person that has 100,000 followers, they might have been working for years before I even started, creating content. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And then I think secondly, I think it's also important to, when you do sense that you're getting a little too focused, or spending a little too much time on numbers and on metrics, flip the script and think about, maybe the quality over the quantity, right? So, for me, if I post something on LinkedIn, whether it's a joke or whether it's vulnerable post or something like that, it's really not so much about how many people like it, but it's about the engagement and the comments that I get. So, I mean, I could have a post that numbers wise maybe doesn't get a lot of impressions or doesn't get a lot of likes, but there could be one or two comments that, could really make me feel like, it was worth my time to write that post and to share that idea with somebody. And somebody could come back and comment and say, wow, this helped me out so much, or this is great advice. Thank you. And it makes me feel, really good about myself, and that I'm kind of on the right track and doing the right thing. So, I think at the end of the day, we as humans tend to compare ourselves a lot to other people, and, oh, well, here's another software engineer posting on LinkedIn. They have more followers than me. Why don't I have as many as them? Or, here's a coworker that got that promotion, and we've been in tech the same amount of time. Why didn't I get that promotion? And I think it's very dangerous, and you start to go down this really dark path when you compare yourself to other people. And I think the best thing to do instead of that is to really compare yourself to yourself, and think about, where you were a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, right? And I think when you start to talk about your career, when you talk about personal branding and maybe your online presence, it's very easy to see growth, when you kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Just looking at maybe, I look at where I was on LinkedIn and Substack and all these other platforms I'm on like a year ago, and my growth has been tremendous, So from that perspective, I am growing and I am learning, and I think that's also helpful to do, is really just, don't compare yourself to other people, but focus on your growth and how far you've come.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, I've heard
Um,
that too.
and that's the thing. Everyone starts at zero. Looking at how far you've come, I think is great for really seeing how far that you can go. So that's awesome. So speaking of how far we can go, let's go ahead, and what I like to do is find the thickest part of the tie, put my finger here, and this is on the short end. When you fold it over, that should make the front loop of your bow tie. The dip should be more or less centered with your chin. Then I take the long end, and then I just pull it down, and it should be something like an elephant. You've got your ears and your trunk.
So
I'll go back. So right here, we just have one part over the shoulder, right? That's
yes.
the long end. This is the short end. I just fold it over like this to make the front loop.
Fold it to the right?
Let's see. I'm having this on my left hand. Yes. So I'm folding it to the right. So I'm folding it in front of my finger, right in front of my neck. So that should make the front loop. So you see how it should look kind of bow tie shaped. And then you just take the other end, you've pulled it right over the front, and it'll make like a nice little, almost like an elephant, where you've got your ears and your trunk. Does that make sense?
Yep. I feel like this is not centered here. There we go.
Oh, don't worry about it being perfectly centered. It should be roughly centered. You can always adjust it after the fact as far as where it's centered. But the perfect thing is, you're not necessarily comparing it. I've been doing this for for a little while, I guess. But if it's your first bow tie, we're just kind of following the steps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It should be more like an elephant. Do you see how I've got an ear on each side?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Man, this is very challenging to do live. Let me start over here. Okay.
Let's see. You're going to recross it? You're starting. Okay. Right. And then you pull the long end right over the shoulder. Now the short end that's in your hand, just pull it to the side. Actually, I forget, because yours is like probably reversed. So I'll go back. So you see how you have it like this, and you have this over to the side. You pull it to the side, put your finger here, fold it back over, and then you'll have your front loop. Right. It'll be easier. Look, you see, you take your short end and pull it to the side like this. Same side. There you go. And then take your finger, and then it should be on the wide part. And then when you fold it like that in front, it should be nice front loop that is right in front of your neck. This looks a little curious to me, but it should look roughly like an elephant. Is the way I've been taught. Maybe it's not an elephant, more like
I should have practiced this beforehand. I apologize, everybody.
No, no worries. The thing about practice is it's I don't know. It's I don't know whether it's going to be easier or harder if you practice. Depends on whether you follow the same technique I did. But meanwhile, let's go ahead and ask another question here. Ooh, you once said show up anyway. What helps you do that, especially when the script goes out the window?
Like my tie going out the window. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I had I had a LinkedIn Live scheduled a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or something at this point. My guest who was lives in Spain. It was the day of the major power outage in Spain or Europe, parts of Europe, and she couldn't make it. She couldn't make the live. I couldn't even get in touch with her beforehand to make sure she was able to attend. So I showed up anyway, and I ended up just kind of answering questions that people left in the chat and in the comment box, and just was totally unprepared, and showed up anyway, and I managed to help some people out by answering their questions. And I think that so much about life is just showing up and just giving an honest try for to do something. And a lot of times we fail our first time, might fail our second and third time, but eventually I think with practice we learn and we get better, right? And so you can't just, in life, a lot of times you can't just fast forward through the messy parts and get to that good part where everything. You're in that flow state. You're very productive. You're effective. You're successful, if you will, right? So the only way to get to that point is to put in the reps and try things. And you're going to fail, and you're not going to know how to do things initially, but you're going to learn and you're going to grow, and eventually you're going to find success. And so I think that's why a lot of times I just will show up, even though I'm not prepared or I don't know what's going to happen, or I'm a little scared, because I know that I'm going to learn from the experience. And I know that if it's something that I care about and something that I eventually want to be successful in, then I need to put in the work. I need to put in the reps and just show up. And, hopefully, there I don't have another LinkedIn Live where that happens again, where, the guest can't make it. But if I do, I'll be prepared, because I've experienced it one time. I was able to navigate my way through that time, and figure out what to say and what to talk about. And so, yeah, if it happens another time, I'll be prepared.
Oh, that's nice. I always feel that same fear viscerally every time I do this every week. I'm like, oh man, what if they don't show up? What's going to happen? And
Yeah.
But it's all right. Let's see. You're close there. Let's see. You've got the long end over your shoulder, right? What
Yes.
you do is you take that short end and you just pull it straight to the side, right? And then you fold it over straight to the side. And then, so the idea is you're pulling it like right in front of your neck. Does that make sense? Almost there. So instead of putting it like here where your neck is, you put your finger here to the side, like where your tie gets wide, then and then see that'll make the front loop.
How's that?
Sure. It's hard to say. Then you pull the long end right over, and then it should be like an elephant. Uh, yeah. So just pull it. There you go. I think that's it. I think that's it. And then for me, it's staying right here. I'm not sure why. Usually, I like to hold it there for the next step. But let's go ahead and ask another question here. Your newsletter and side business reflect a strong creator identity. What pushed you to start building in public, and what's kept you going?
Yes. So I think that, I think building in public has really been something that I've gravitated towards in the past couple of years because of really the job market and just all of my, I've had a kind of a roller coaster ride in my career ever since 2020. I've been fired. I've been laid off. I've gone through 4 or 5 job searches at this point, and so at some point I realized, it's more than if I really want to get hired and if I want to be taken seriously by companies, I can't just show up to the interview with my resume. I need to have an active LinkedIn profile. I need to have side projects and examples of code and other interests and hobbies, related to the industry, perhaps. And that's really why I decided to, start building apps in public, start my newsletter, start creating more content for LinkedIn and sharing what I'm learning and what I'm building there. And now I'm convinced that, building in public and posting in public, if you will, on LinkedIn is really one of the best ways that you can, attract not only job opportunities, but attract other doors and windows to open in your life. Because it really, it shows other people what you're made of and what you're excited about, what you're skilled in, what you're not skilled in yet, but maybe want to learn. And, the flip side of that is that it's hard to show people, what you're about and what you're interested in if you don't publicly come out and share that. And so, yeah, I think that, my advice for anybody who's looking for a job right now, especially in the tech industry, is to, take your online presence very seriously. And, whether you're building an app or whether you're writing a newsletter or just sharing your learnings on LinkedIn, being, honest and open about where you are in your, journey with tech and what you've been through and any obstacles you've overcome and, the direction that you want to head as far as your career goes. Doing that not only, helps people get to know you a little bit better, but it also sets you apart from the competition. And it also, puts some metadata, if you will, next to your name and next to your face in your profile. There's a lot of jobs out there right now that have, hundreds, thousands of applicants, and it's really hard to stand out. So, putting in those reps when it comes to building in public, when it comes to your online presence, sharing your thoughts and ideas, that helps distinguish you from the mass of applicants. And I really do believe that is one of the best ways to get the attention of hiring managers and recruiters out there, and get your foot in the door and start interviewing and hopefully land your next job.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. I don't know. I try to take my online presence a little bit seriously, but let's see. Let's see if we can get to the next step. So you should be able to grab both of the ears of the elephant, and I like to pull them forward, pull down on this trunk, and then that way there's a little hole that should appear here. And then once you grab that hole, you grab the base of that trunk, you pull that base of the trunk through that hole that forms your back loop. And then once you pull just enough of there to form loop, you straighten it out like this. Then when you pull both sides, you have a bow tie. I might have done that a little fast, but I can do that again.
Okay, so I have the.
Oh, okay. You have the elephant. You pull the elephant like forward. You pull those loops forward, and then you pull the trunk down. And then doing that, if you like, I use my dominant hand to pull the trunk down with like these two fingers. Then I use my index finger to poke through that hole, and then that hole is where I pull the trunk through to get that loop. I can do it again. I'll use my other tie because it's reversible and it's easy to see. So this is nice. So I've got like two sides. I like it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm gonna start again with the cross, like so. I throw that other end over my shoulder. There's a nice wide end. I fold it over. Actually, you know what? I should probably be. Let's see. Does that make sense? Because right now I have the front loop in front of my neck. And one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that when you tie it like this, it should be fairly close to your neck because, you know, that's going to be the tie. So when I pull it, oh, I don't know. I feel like I've lost you a little bit.
All right, I
So
think I got.
let's see. Okay, so it looks like there we go. Now you got your front loop, right?
Yes.
Now you pull that other end back over to make your elephant here. I can actually let me flip this over. That way it's a little bit more colorful and it's easier to see. Is that does that even make sense? But like you see how I have my front loop here and then I have down this is what will make the rest of the loop. So when I pull the ears, then oh no, I'm too far ahead.
Yeah, I think my problem is I'm trying to follow the video. I'm trying to
Is
follow.
my video reversed for you? Well,
Yeah.
actually, no, my video is reversed to me. So I don't know how to follow it for uh okay. I think we got it. It should be like a nice loop right here. Okay, you're very, very close there. It's just you want to make sure that when you have that front loop, like this part that comes down, the trunk is like right in the middle. Does that make sense? Because you
Yeah.
need to pull on those ears. And then uh actually let's see if we can't get an okay, you're almost close because it looks like your ear is like you know what I'm saying? You want it to be in the middle. You want to have a nice chunk of ear on each side of that. You know, okay, that'll work. Well, let's ask another question here. Um,
I feel like every time we ask a question, I lose my progress here.
you lose your progress? Well,
Yeah.
no, look, you're super close. You know, it's like this part is like basically there you go. That's it. So now when you pull on the ears like this and you pull on the trunk like that, it should expose a hole. And see how I'm poking a hole right there? Then I just pinch with my thumb and forefinger, and then I push that loop through the hole with my other thumb. I'm very careful to just do just enough to get that loop through, that forms the back loop, then boom, bow tie.
Do you push the trunk? Do you push that up through the hole, or
Yeah, yeah.
do you go behind?
You pull the base of the trunk through that hole. So this back loop here, it's like a loop, or I can, all I did is pull the base of that trunk. But the end of the trunk, which is this part right here, I made sure to not pull the whole thing through. Does that make sense? And then once you do that, you got a tie.
Where does the trunk go?
So the trunk's right here, right? I keep the end of the trunk in my hand here. Oh, so this is the base of the trunk, right? So I'm pulling the base of the trunk, pushing the base of the trunk through that hole. And then see, this is the end of that trunk. The end doesn't go all the way through. It's only just a little bit of a loop. And then once that loop comes through, boom. Then I unfold it, and it's a bow tie. But don't worry, the third step is like truly the hardest step. Once the first time usually doesn't work that well, but if you could at least get it like partially on that third time, the next thing you know, and it's like you said, you show up anyway. The first 27 times I tried to tie a bow tie, it didn't exactly work. But that 28th time erased all the failures.
Yeah, it might take me 58 times here.
But speaking of that, though, I hear that you had an extended bout of unemployment. So tell me, what was that like, and what did you learn from the experience?
Yeah, it was not fun. I'll say that. It was very, very frustrating, and to be honest, I went through some depression during that time. I was collecting unemployment, and my unemployment ran out, so I had to tap into my retirement savings, get family to help me out as well. My parents. So it was financially, it was very rough for my family. I'm married with 2 kids, so we have a lot of expenses, as you can imagine, as a family of 4, and it was just very frustrating, I think, from also just from a career professional perspective, right? Just getting so many rejections for my applications, getting ghosted a lot. There was, I think I got ghosted at least, 1/3 of my applications were just never heard back any response, up or down. There was just no response. So it was, it was almost, humiliating and kind of like, just, yeah, really, really tough. And, I learned a lot about myself during that time. I never gave up, and I always reserved some amount of optimism. I always, even on the worst days, I still reserved 1% of optimism, right? And I never ran out. And, I just knew that I had to keep going to eventually find a job, because I wanted to support my family, and I wanted to be there for them, and support them financially. And so that's really what kind of drove me to keep going. And yeah, so I think I learned a lot about resiliency. I learned a lot about, dedication and consistency as well. During that time, I think that, when you're out of work for a long time and applying for jobs, it's sometimes it can be hard to be consistent in your approach, because you get so many rejections that pile up, and you get ghosted so many times that you almost want to give up, and you just want to take a day off, a week off, or however long off, and just take a break. But and it's not so much that you necessarily need to be applying every day or all the time, but you need to be in that positive mindset of growing and learning and making strides towards your goal. So if you're not applying, if you're not filling out an application one day, that's fine. But like, you should be maybe having a coffee chat with somebody, or having an informational interview with, another person in your industry, right? Or working on a side project, or building in public, right? So there's lots of different things you can do to stay busy and stay active. And it might feel like it's not necessarily related to your job search, but I think there's ways to make it related, right? If you communicate in the right way. So, I think that the other thing I wanted to mention is that the next time that I was out of work, after those 8 months, so I was out of work for 8 months, I found a job, and then I was laid off about a little more than a year into my time at the company. And that second time, if you will, that I was out of work, I found a job within 2 months. And I really attribute that rapid turnaround to my network on LinkedIn. And the job that I got, I was referred to it from a LinkedIn connection that I had. And, I'm convinced that the power of your network is real. And, a lot of tech creators I know out there that are posting all the time on LinkedIn, that have podcasts, that have newsletters. A big reason why they do that is to build up that war chest of connections and of their network, right? Because if, God forbid, they are out of work for some reason, they'll have people to turn to. They'll have a support system. They'll have people that can make introductions for them, that can refer them for jobs. And you really need that nowadays when you're looking for a job, like in this market and in this tech industry. It's really hard to do it alone. And in fact, I wouldn't recommend it because not only is it going to have the potential of severely impacting your mental health, but it's also probably just going to take a lot longer to find a job than it would if you have people you can support you and help you out along the way. And so those are some of the lessons I learned, through the different times I've been unemployed. Again, your network can be your secret weapon, in your job search, in your business, in your other endeavors that you have in life. But you have to take it seriously, and you have to put in the work. You can't just collect all these connections on LinkedIn and then just reach out and say, hey, give me a job. It doesn't work like that. I posted about this today on LinkedIn. Networking requires, it's not just a one-time transaction. It's a long-term investment. And that's why a lot of people don't take networking seriously and don't want to spend the time on it, because oftentimes you don't see that return on investment for months or years later. But to me, I'm convinced that it's one of the best ways to get what you want in life, whether that's the job or the promotion or starting a business or even just growing a following on social media somewhere. The power of your network will help you get there.
Yeah, it reminds me, going back to marbles in the jar, putting that network, each post that you put up, each comment that you put in there, every time that you do something, it's like putting one marble in that jar. But once you have a jar full of marbles, that is very powerful. And maybe that's the thing. People think that it's something you can do all at once, and it really isn't. Something that takes time.
Yeah.
But let me ask this. This might be related. Why did you start your side business and last year, and what have you learned about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question because it's something that is deeply personal to me and something that I'm always excited to talk about. And I think it, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else who's started a business, and I probably haven't talked to as many entrepreneurs as maybe I should, but the reason why I started my side business was really to have control. And I think that um, and I mean that in a lot of different senses, and different ways. But just speaking from a technical level, when you join a software engineering team, you're not as in control as you'd like to be, right? A lot of times, the tech stack already exists, the code base already exists, the repositories already exist, the roadmap already exists. The work that you need to do is already there when you show up, or it will be shortly after. And so you don't really have much control over, uh, from a technical perspective, over necessarily like different technologies, right? Like you're kind of, you have to work within the confines of the system and the department and the team that you join, right? And also, you don't always have control over the work that you do. Sometimes, there's a lot of bugs to fix, and you're going to be doing a lot of, pushing a lot of like hot fix branches and bug fix branches, and that's kind of the bulk of your day as a software engineer. But maybe you would like to be doing feature work, or maybe you would like to be doing research work or spike work, right? So from when you think about the daily activities of a software engineer, a lot of times we don't really have control over that. We're kind of forced to work on what the team or the company needs us to work on. And so part of the reason why I wanted to start my side business and grow that over time is because I wanted to have control. I wanted to say, hey, I want to build this app, and I want to use these specific technologies, and I want to, I want to plan out the MVP with these features, and I want to devote this much time to it, or whatever, right? That's the beauty of building on the side, of building in public, of starting your own business. You are in control of those decisions. You get to decide how you want to spend your time. And to me, that was just something that was so compelling and so just like attractive to me, that this opportunity to say, hey, I'm gonna start my side business, and if I want to build a digital product and create a Notion template, I can do that. If I want to build an app, and use this specific tech stack, I can do that. If I want to start a newsletter and I want to write about various topics as part of my business, I can do that. So that feeling and that sense of control was really important for me when I started my business. And I think the other piece of it is also just, like I said earlier, just kind of the roller coaster ride I've been on in my career, with, being let go and being laid off and having to do all these job searches. You don't have so much control when it comes to that sometimes in the workforce. We, especially in America, a lot of jobs are, at will employment. So the employer can let you go at any time for any reason, and the employee can decide to part ways with the company at any time and leave, right? And so nowadays in tech, really, there isn't a whole lot of job security, to be honest with you. And obviously, if you've been paying attention to tech news over the past few years, I mean, there's layoffs happening nearly every day, every week, right? Some big companies, some small companies. And so when you take a look at it from that perspective, software engineers or people in tech really don't have much control, as much, at least they don't have as much control as they'd like when it comes to their jobs and their careers. And when you work for another company, you know, somebody else is making the decision whether you stay or go. It's not you. You might be doing an awesome job at that company. You might be a high performer. You might be, a social butterfly and just have all these friends and connections. Everybody likes you. You have great relationships, and you can still be laid off or let go at a moment's notice. So I think that's why I'm so passionate and so excited about talking about entrepreneurship and kind of exploring that topic with other software engineers and teaching them about it. Any lessons that I've learned so far, because it really can give you that sense of power and control and allow you to almost take the power back in a way where maybe during your 9 to 5, you feel like you don't have as much control as you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. You want to control um, things that in your job are out of your control. For example, like you mentioned, layoffs happen. They're not your fault. Um, and definitely, I'm a person that I always feel like um, when you have a job, right? You're very much qualified for that specific job, but the next job they might be using a slightly different tech stack or a wildly different tech stack. And where do you get the opportunity to explore that other tech stack that they're not working with? You pretty much have to do it on your own, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, I can see the appeal of that. But speaking of control, let's see if we can't control this tie here. I'm gonna grab my tie one more time here, and let's see if we can't get this right here. I cross over, and what I'm doing is here. You see where it's like it's just getting wide here. That's where I'm crossing it right here, and so I'm kind of tightening it so it's right around my neck. Uh-oh, did I lose you already?
I think I'm gonna have to try this out in front of the mirror and get back to you on it, because this is really I'm having some technical difficulties, if you will.
Ah, you know what? I guess that's the thing is there's things you can control and things you can't control, right? I, of course, control the way that I can tie my tie, but some things are definitely out of my control. And forgive me, I'm kind of going through this quickly here, but it's the same steps every time. It's just I don't know. I've got to figure out a way to distill it better. But that is, let's see. But let me see where I can guide you. You look a little confused, but yeah. You see, you fold it over to make that front loop. Uh, yeah. Okay. So you got the long end, the odd end, right? You fold that short end over the front to make the front loop. Actually, you know what? I think I tied my string into my tie here. You're okay. There you go. You got the elephant there. That's perfect. Uh, you're actually extremely close here.
Yeah, I think I just lose it after this step here.
No, but that's actually a great step. So I'm pulling out the back loop. So you've got the elephant right here. So you got your two ears. And what I like to do is I like to grab the two ears with one hand, pull that forward. I pull the trunk with my dominant hand, and using my index finger, I find the hole that's right behind the ears.
Okay.
And then once I had that, I use my thumb and forefinger to pinch, and then I shove the in base of that trunk through that hole using my opposite thumb, and
See
then boom.
that's where you're losing me. Like the hole that you put your finger through, is that this hole right here that's created when I?
Uh, what should happen is you pull your ears forward, you pull your trunk down. There should be a hole. It's between. It's not touching your neck, and it's between these this front loop
Yeah.
and the neck. And
Yes.
then that's the hole you want to push the base of that trunk through. And once you push the base of that trunk through that hole, that forms your back loop. And then you have a tie. It's, I don't know. It might be hard to overthink it, but that's the thing. Oh, what are you thinking about? You look like you're lost in thought.
I feel like if I pull this back up, it's just going to come out.
No, 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 no. When you pull your front loop like this, you pull down on the trunk, and you don't. When you pull it up, you're actually pulling it like kind of behind it, and then you're pushing it through that hole. Does that make sense?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh. Sound looks like just pull. You push. That's the hole. You push the
No. Maybe I have the wrong hole here. Maybe I
It
need
could
to.
be. You see, the thing is like you see how the loop it's like double on one side and it's single on the other. You want to make sure that you push it the opposite way. But we're out of time, so I've got to end the stream here for everyone here. But thank you for being a guest on the show. Is there any parting words you want to leave?
Well, I feel bad that I couldn't make the bow tie work during the 1 hour, but maybe this is a good life lesson for me and for everybody else. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to to get what we're looking for. So my homework is to make this work, and I will take a photo of me with this tied and send it over to you. So
Awesome. All right. Thank you for being here. All right. That's it. Until next week.